Hi, I'm Major General Mike Edwards, the Adjutant General of Colorado, the Governor's Military and Veterans Advisor, and the Commander of the Colorado National Guard.
He certainly is one of the long-serving tags, but more than that, he's really been one of the best. And if you look at it, he really kind of revolutionized how we approach veterans in this state. He also envisioned and helped implement a expanded statewide system of armories. And then I think, perhaps most importantly, in our time of challenge, the Guard was there for the state of Colorado. And General Edwards' leadership there was invaluable.
If you remember, when I chose him, 2007, it was a time where we had more National Guard troops deployed overseas than in any time in the history of the state. So the person I chose really needed to have a sense about how to honor those soldiers who were serving, the soldiers and the airmen and women who were serving in the National Guard, but also understand what a monumental task it would be to take care of the families here at home.
The thing that he really has brought to the government of Colorado is getting them to understand what the culture of the Guard is, and that these are everyday citizens going out there doing amazing things every day.
The Colorado Department of Military and Veterans Affairs is made up of the Colorado National Guard, the Colorado Wing of the Civil Air Patrol, and the State Division of Veterans Affairs. The National Guard is the largest of the three, and the National Guard is the oldest branch of the United States military. So
when I first got elected governor, I think it was my understanding the National Guard was like most people's. Gratitude. These are people that come in one weekend a month. They stay connected to the military. If we need them overseas, we need them overseas. And oh yes, on occasion, they'll be called into service in a flood or something, but never really thought about it. Never saw the difference that the National Guard can make when you're in a real natural disaster, where people are losing their lives and their homes and, everything most precious to them.
We had a lot of other kinds of domestic emergencies, a couple of tornadoes, a couple of really serious fires. The National Guard were on hand, and again, it just gave me such an appreciation for what it took to be the Adjutant General. You have to be ready, and your troops have to be ready to go to war, to go to combat, Iraq and Afghanistan, but you have to fight forest fires up canyons outside of Boulder, or tornadoes in Windsor or Holly, and they were absolutely capable of doing that. And I give Mike and really his predecessors as well so much credit for that.
General Edwards' leadership there was invaluable. We went through the two worst summers of drought since the Great Depression, the two worst seasons of wildfires the state had ever seen, the worst drought or the worst flood that the state had ever seen, and in each one of these cases, the National Guard was there, and it wasn't just coming in and holding things together during the time of crisis. It was during the rebuilding and the resiliency. Engineers, coming in for weeks at a time to rebuild our roads up in the western foothills after the flood of 2013. I mean, one story after another, and that kind of success doesn't happen without great leadership.
Well, I think General Edwards' legacy is the soldiers and airmen that he leaves in the force. That's his legacy, the time he spent teaching and mentoring the people who would come after him. They are a credit to his leadership, and I think they're his legacy. It's a living legacy, and it'll last for generations. People who learn from General Edwards will pass those same traits to the soldiers and airmen that follow them.
The family of the Guard is kind of unique. I can remember as a new Assistant Adjutant General, the outgoing Adjutant General asking if there was training for notification if we ever lost a troop on duty or in war, in combat. And General Edwards point blank said, "That's my job. If I'm the man that can send them into harm's way, I need to be the man that will notify their families."
That first 4 years with the fires and the floods, the shooting in the Aurora movie theater, I went to 62 funerals. And it's something you're not taught in the outside world very easily. but it is a learned skill of how to really listen and pay attention to what people need when they're in the worst moment of their life. And Mike Edwards was a good teacher.
Humility and vulnerability are qualities that I always look for in cabinet members, certainly looked for when I was hiring for the TAG. And while I was the governor, I certainly saw that in General Edwards. That's an important quality and an important characteristic.
I attribute his success to just being a human being that takes the human factor into everything that he does. Probably one of the most humbling things about him is he'll say, "Did you ever think that when you joined the military that you would see any of this?" And he always says, "I never did."
So one of the things I was always reminded when I was around Mike Edwards, it's an old saw that says, you can take the boy out of the country, you can't take the country out of the boy. Mike Edwards, for me, always had the best qualities of a farm boy from Nebraska. He had a fantastic work ethic. He had integrity and ethical behavior, and it all sort of stemmed from, I think, who he was and how he was raised as a child. As a Nebraska farm boy, he learned the very best of the American traditions, and he carried those all the way to the place where he was the Adjutant General for the state of Colorado for now almost 10 years.
If he was to be, what do we call it, memorialized or honored by a statue, he would probably want to be sitting on his John Deere tractor talking to a neighbor.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, "I need a caretaker." So God made a farmer. God said, "I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, work all day in the fields, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board." So God made a farmer. "I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild." God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay in ahead of the rain clouds and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners. Somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all can't comfortably say this, but I can. The highest compliment is when the girl of your life says, "I do." But second, it's when you are saluted by your peers. It still just doesn't seem logical to me that a fellow can be honored for doing every day what he most wants to be doing every day. It does not seem logical, but then as Cowboy Perk Carlson always used to say, if life were logical, it's men who would ride side saddle. So what do you know? Tomorrow always has been better than today, and it still will be. Good day.